All right, it looks like we're live. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Perfect Practice. Today, I am absolutely honored and thrilled to share with you somebody who I've known for many, many years, somebody who has personally transformed my life, somebody who I love as a friend and as a brother and as a mentor, and somebody who has helped me impact, hundreds, if not thousands of people through the teachings and lessons that he has shared with me. And he's going to be offering them with us today. My dear, dear mentor, friend, my brother, Giovanni Bartolomeo. Welcome, Giovanni. Thank you for being here today.
Sachin, thank you so much for having me. It's funny, as you're saying that, I thought, hey, if I ever had Sachin on, I had to introduce him, I'd almost say the exact same thing word for word. So I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And I know this has been a long time coming for both of us. I'm so excited to share you with our audience, put you in front of them so that they can kind of see behind the scenes of my own personal transformation that's been taking place, how we've transformed our functional medicine practice over the years to incorporate some of the teachings that you're going to be sharing with us today. And before we jump right in, what I love for people to do is get a sense of who you are. So I don't want to give any labels. I haven't introduced you. I've only introduced you as my mentor because I think labels reduce you and reduce all of us down to preconceived notions. So I'd love for you to share, who is Giovanni? Who is Gio?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and there's many layers to that. There's the kind of obvious response, like the things that I do, which I think is kind of what we're going to be talking about today. And the more challenging one I've been asking myself lately is when you start taking all of those things that you do away, like what's left, who's the person that's
Mm.
left, and what really constitutes like the essence of a human being, and how do you want to show up in that way. So we'll leave that one for maybe another deeper conversation. But basically, I'm a dad. I'm a recovering serial entrepreneur, I like to put it. I can get into that a bit more, and just someone who's really trying to live more in the moment and just be fueled by passion and be fueled by being inspired, and putting my energy into things that really um, get me excited in the morning, that have impact, and that I feel will make a difference in a positive way. I feel like the world is in such an interesting time right now, and to be alive and to be a part of what's going on right now is just, it's amazing. And sometimes it can be scary, which I think makes it even more amazing. But it's like, what do I want to contribute to what's going on right now, and how do I want to impact others? And so, the best way I can do that right now is through my community, through the work that I do, through the businesses that I kind of involve myself in. And so, right now, where I find myself after, recovering of years of serial entrepreneurialism, just chasing money, trying to make money any kind of which way I can, really beating myself up, draining myself, emotionally, physically, mentally. I have Elemental Rhythm Breathwork company, I guess. It feels weird even calling it a company. It's like a breathwork community, I guess, that I'm a part of. That we teach people how to breathe better. We use breathwork in a way that can help people really get a lot of deeper self-awareness about themselves, to maybe release blockages or limiting beliefs, and also to help get clarity and inspiration moving forward. And so we developed a whole kind of program around that, which includes facilitator training. So I spend a lot of my energy and focus in that, and really it's just this incredible community of people that we've created. I also am partners in a project called Personal Development School. It's an online school that really just helps um, reprogram the subconscious mind in many different ways through video courses, and we've been scaling that for the last couple of years. And I'm a dad, and I'm passionate about things like psychedelics. I've made a documentary about that and advised for a few companies in that space, and really just trying to like let go of all the other businesses I've been attached to over the years, which I'm almost finished, and moving into the next chapter is really just trying to create like more time for myself to really do what I really want to do, which is a lot more of the reflecting type things, like the question we kind of opened with, and maybe making music and stuff like that. So that's kind of who I am in a nutshell, I guess. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I would define you as a Renaissance man. Somebody with multiple
Flattered.
talents. Every time I meet you, there's something new and cool I learn about you, and you're very well rounded, which I truly appreciate as well. I do want to give people an idea of how we met, just for some context. So, my buddy Jordan Boxer, bless his heart, um, he actually invited me a few years ago to go to a Wim Hof training, and I said okay. And so my friend Satdeep and Jordan, we both attended your Wim Hof training that you did in, I believe it was Bolton, if I remember correctly. And it was middle of February, and Jordan's like, "Bring your shorts." I'm like, "What do you mean, bring my shorts?" He's like, "Yeah, bring your swim trunks." I'm like, "There's a pool there?" He's like, "No, just trust me." And so we get there, and you're leading the class, and you just had an amazing energy, and everyone there that was attracted to this training was just very positive, uplifting, and I realized that everyone was there on their own journey, trying to find meaning to life and purpose, and also looking to explore what the limitations and limits really, or the unlimitations of our body are. So by the end of that training, I was able to hold my breath for about 3.5 minutes, which sounds doesn't sound like a very long time, but it's, I always tell people, if you want to know how long a minute is, hold your breath for a minute. If you want to know how short a minute is, scroll on Facebook, right? A minute goes by pretty fast depending on what you're doing, or it can be really long depending on what you're doing. And so I was so impressed with myself. I'm like, wow, like, Giovanni helped me unlock a power that I didn't even know I had, a capability I didn't know that I had. And then they're like, oh, put your trunks on. And we had to go outside in the middle of February and dunk ourselves in this, like, in this little kiddie pool that was filled with ice in the middle of February. And I remember it was like so interesting because there was about maybe about 15 or 20 of us, maybe even more. And we all took our turns getting in there for about 60 to 90 seconds. And then we couldn't bring our towels. We had to actually dry ourselves off. And, so I was way outside my comfort zone. But when I left there, I felt so much more capable. I felt so much more alive. And I just really got, sucked in isn't the right word, but really got sucked into your vortex of energy, and just, there was something that drew me into you. And maybe it's all the breath work that you're doing, maybe it's the way you carry yourself, but I felt this, this kinship, and I felt this bond between us. And since then, we've become really good friends. You've mentored me to become a breathwork facilitator. We've partnered on a few businesses together, and it's really fun to kind of watch you continue to grow. And here I am trying to grow each and every single day, and reach for my fullest potential. And you've played such a huge role in that, that I want to honor you and tell you that I'm so grateful, because it literally changed the trajectory of my life. That training showed me what the potential is, or that Wim Hof training. But then when you really introduced me to the Elemental Rhythm Breathwork Experience, and I got to witness it for myself, that was one of the most profound things that had ever happened to me. And when you made it available for me to learn so that I could create this experience for other people, I think I was part of the first graduating class, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I raised my hand right away. I said, I need to learn this. And this is unfortunately something that nobody had taught us, right? In chiropractic school, we didn't really learn about breathing techniques. And even in functional medicine, we don't really learn much about breathing. But as I started going down this rabbit hole with yourself, with James Nestor and Patrick McEwen, books that you had recommended reading, I realized, wow, these yogis and this ancient wisdom is a lost art, as James Nestor calls it. We really need to bring it to the forefront. And who better to teach it to, other people than yourself? Who better to, get in front of more practitioners than yourself and myself, and make this available to as many people as possible. So I know our relationship and our journey continues to evolve, and I'm super excited to see where it takes us. So let's get right into this, because I know there's a lot to cover, and I know that our time may be limited today. So what I'd love to start off with is, an operational definition of what breath work is. This is, we talked about this, like, you go in and you might ask people what yoga is, and they might have a clear understanding of what yoga is, but you ask them what breath work is, and you can get 1,000 different responses. And there are, many different breathing techniques. So I'd love to hear what your definition of breath work is.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that we've been trying to just work on, like how we define it, because it's kind of like a blanket term, almost like breathing, breath work, and it can mean a lot of different things to different people. And what's interesting, it's really early in the space, and you know that because it hasn't really found this like universally accepted definition yet, right? Like, as the example, yoga, you're going to get, within a few kind of like, exercise, kind of spiritual practice, kind of like movement, stretching, but people will have a vision of what yoga is in their mind, and a few different variations of that. So breath work, basically, it's like the art of manipulating your breath to get a desired outcome, more or
Mm.
less, in a statement. What does that mean? Well, there's pranayama, which is the ancient yogic technique. There's holotropic breath work. There's Wim Hof breathing. There's all these different ones that are coming out right now. Buteyko is a style of breath work. There's breathwork practices and there's breathwork experiences. And you know what elemental rhythm breath work is, it's really just a style of breathing that helps the participant have a deeper self-awareness, to help them go into a space that they didn't even think was possible, ultimately to see better, to see what might be holding them back, to release things that maybe they weren't able to see, and to help bring clarity into their lives. And so we've developed this whole program around that, based on experience I had doing Wim Hof breathing. And when I first heard about breath work, I didn't even know what it was. The first time I heard about Wim Hof, I was watching a video online. I thought, oh, this guy looks so cool. He's interesting. I'd love to share this with some friends. We used to get together and like have these little group meetings and just talk about interesting stuff, because, back in 2012 or 2013, around then, I didn't have anyone to talk to about like ayahuasca and like all these weird things that I was starting to get into. It was really fringe at that time. But I thought, okay, this guy's inspiring. And eventually, I said, once I saw him, I felt this real strong attraction to want to get to know him, to want to meet him. And I told my wife, I said, yeah, I'm going to meet this guy one day. And, within a year, we were hanging out in Toronto, and I brought him in to do the live event here. And at his training, over the course of the years, he invited me to do the first Wim Hof teacher training. And, we were jumping in frozen lakes and climbing mountains in our shorts. And that was the initial reason I wanted to go. Like, yeah, it's going to be super cool to get a picture with Wim in my shorts, like very ego-based thinking. I'll put on Instagram, maybe we'll get some followers. And we went on this deeper breathing journey there, where we just kept breathing. And it seemed like, a long time. And I had this complete out-of-body experience. And I remember coming back, I was floating around the room, and I came back and I was crying, and it felt so good to cry. As a man who's, doesn't allow themselves to show emotions, I just had this really deep release and felt like a baby that was reborn. And I didn't know what to make of it at the time, but when I came back, I just felt this deeper curiosity to explore that. So I started exploring all those types of breathwork experiences. So a lot of people that do pranayama is like, yeah, I breathe so hard, but I'm really there, present in the moment. I feel changes in my body, but I didn't have these like deeper visual experiences. And me being a bit of a psychonaut and explorer of the mind, I was like, yeah, that's the kind of places that I wanted to go. And I just kept chasing that, and just followed my intuition. And over the span of maybe a year or two, I really had refined this process that I was able to allow myself to go there time and time again. And I started sharing it with people, and they were able to go there. And it was so amazing to witness, because like when I was facilitating Wim Hof, people are like, oh yeah, I held my breath 3 minutes, like that was amazing. Go in the ice bath, you see this sense of empowerment. But when they were having these like really deep experiences, like it was something totally different. And being a
Mm.
part of being able to witness that, and like I don't take any credit for the experience, because I really believe that the experience is created by the person's willingness to kind of go all in and trust, and just to like let go.
Right.
But to be able to coach them through that, to be able to hold that space, it was so powerful for me. It was almost as powerful as if I was doing the experience myself. And that's when like things start to click. It's like, hey, you need to share this with people. And so we started just having classes, and those got full, and waiting list started, and then it was like, okay, what's next? Like this was the craziest part of my life as an entrepreneur. It's like, hey, I really wanted to make the shift from my old business life, which was basically, how can you make money? What's a good idea? It didn't really matter what it was. If it was a good idea, I would try it. And I realized later, like, it brought me out of alignment with who I was in many occasions, which caused me a lot of pain and suffering. And so this one was like, hey, I'm really aligned with this. I want to do a business around it. So I opened a float studio in Vaughan. So sensory deprivation tanks, float saunas, eventually like breathwork classes. That was a main thing, because I wanted to have a community space to do the classes, but I didn't want it to be a hangout, because I've had those kind of places before where people just
Mhm.
end up hanging out. It just ends up costing you money, and whatever. um and that experience really brought me face to face with some of my darkest fears at the time, which is my attachment to my image of success. When you're faced with potential failure, opening up a space, putting all of your life's investment in it, and
Mm.
then doubting if it was the right decision, if this area is ready for, like all these fears. But it shifted, because there was a point where I released all that and was saying, hey, like, it's okay if I fail. It doesn't matter. Anyone who truly matters to me is not going to judge me or worry about me. And I couldn't even put my finger on anyone who was afraid of judging me. Anyways, like I tried to really focus on like, who's that one person who's going to like judge me and it's going to really matter. And there was nobody. But so I started just focusing on helping people. And then from there, it just evolved. And then like the classes got busier. And then COVID hit and all the staff were like, hey, now you got to train us how to do this. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, I've never really taught in that way before. Like, I can run a class, but like to train someone to be a facilitator, that was like a whole new thing, make a manual. So I said, okay, guys, I'll try. And we did it. We did it. And what was really interesting to me, it was two things. One was when I was faced with that question, can you teach us how to do it? Again, the ego came back up. It's like, hey, man, this is your thing. This is unique. Only you do this. And if you teach all these people, then they're all going to be able to do the same thing you can do. You know, is that what you really want? And I was like, oh, like the mind starts going off. Oh, geez. And I just meditated on it that same day. And it was just like, the answer was a very clear yes. It's like, if you really truly want to help people, like the best way to help people is to teach more people to do these things, not worry about taking credit for it. And it's been like an ongoing challenge because like some people I've trained in the past have gone on to do very similar things and take full credit for creating it. And I catch myself like feeling that. It's like, hey man, remember, like it's not about ownership. It's about, you know, the net good, you know, like, is this thing you're creating really creating impact? And like, you know, all those little things like whose property is this and all these like things that we fight over in business and capitalism today. It's like, that's what's really causing all these problems. It's like, hey, just allow that to drop and just know that what's coming back to you is going to come in its own way. And so yeah, we started teaching people and training them, and what was really shocking was seeing people like yourself come back and share the experience they had with their loved ones or someone special to them. It's like, oh, I got to connect to my dad in a way I'd never connected before. You know, we were crying together and my dad never shows emotion. Or like someone would say like, oh, I was able to connect with my kids or like whatever. And you can feel, even though I wasn't in that experience, how powerful it was because they're just sharing that. They're going back into that energy of that share. And so like, that's when I knew it was like, okay, like there's really something powerful here that we just got to keep going with. And of all the business I've done in my track record of serial entrepreneurial failures and successes, because I'm sure there's equal amount of both that gets you know, to figure something out. This was the easiest because there was such value in it. And I felt it in my heart and I didn't even like try to push it as a business. It really took 2 years. Like just now we're really getting organized. In the last year, I was like, okay, like, are we going to really structure this for growth? Because it was all word of mouth. We were all just like doing it as it came, allowing it to expand and just like getting feedback, like how well things are working. And you know, we're trying to keep it not too intense because I don't want it to feel like, oh, this is a job. And, you know, in the past, or I've seen other people like maybe jump too quickly into their passion and not being ready for that real hard, hey, I need to make an income to survive type mindset, or else, you know, I'm going to end up hating this thing because I'm going to blame it for the problems. And really, you know, it could be anything else that really is blocking it.
Right.
And so it's feeling like in a good space now to really move it to that next level. So I don't even know the question that started this, but that was kind of like the journey of explanation to get to like where we are today.
Awesome. And to give context, when was your first Wim Hof experience? When was that first breathwork experience for you?
So I probably watched that first video in like 2014 when I reached out to him. And
Okay.
we did the first training in LA in May 20, no, somewhere in 2015. And the final certification was November 2016. I'm usually really bad with dates. The only reason I remember that is because it was during the US presidential election in 2016 and everyone was going nuts. Is Trump going to win? Is he not going to win? Like half the people were, yeah, it was a crazy time. And we were up in the Colorado Rockies. And obviously as a Canadian, I really didn't care. Like I was watching these guys all freak out. But yeah, that was the time.
Well, funny story about that. Same time of year, my wife and I were in Florida at the time, and she was there for a bowel obstruction procedure that she was having done. And so I do remember distinctly where I was during the election. It's kind of like 9/11, right? Like everyone
Right.
kind of remembers where they were when it happened or when they
Right.
heard the news breaking.
Right.
So what I love about that, and the reason I asked that is because, you know, you've probably picked up a lot of things along the way. You've probably dropped a lot of things along the way, and you've really chiseled down the elemental rhythm experience for people to now benefit from, right? So many of our practitioners, and I hope that eventually all of them go through this training because it's been so transformational for me. But everyone who's gone through it has had nothing but amazing things to say, because what's cool about it is that you don't just kind of sign up for it. You've had some sort of experience, and now you want to create that experience for others. And so, as a breathwork facilitator, you've really got to hold space, right? Not a placeholder, you're a space holder for people. And it's amazing. And as you were even sharing the story about connecting with your father, like that, for connecting with a father, I mean, that was, I don't know if you were repeating my story back to you, but that was my story. I used this breath work with my mom and my dad and my brother. And my dad, just broke down, and he's usually not somebody who's very emotional, but he was holding on to a lot of shame and guilt for, losing his business and, putting our family in a tough financial position. And he was able to release that. And to me, that was like the greatest gift I could have ever given him, was giving him that ability to do that for himself, right? I don't think anyone could have talked him into giving up that shame and guilt. It was something he had to, go through on his own. And even when you were sharing the story, and as I tell it, I get goosebumps, because it was such a profound, shift in our relationship. And even for him to be able to release that, I know that that's good for his health, right? A lot
Right.
of our issues end up in our tissues, and breath work is a great way to mobilize some of that pain and bring it to the surface and get rid of it.
And yeah, it was kind of directed at what you shared with me, but it's not isolated to that. I've heard that
Mm,
so many times that people share that exact same thing with my sister, with my mom, with my father, and we shared this moment. And I also find that in these breathwork experiences, like because of that share, like this bond is created, this level of trust, this level of like connection deepens, and it's why I think it's like the best tool to build community. You start doing a class and you start having amazing connections. They want to bring people, they want to introduce you to people. Like it's like the best way to build a community and to deepen relationships by far, but better than anything I've ever experienced. Um, and to the issues in the tissues comment, like, you know, I can't prove any of the stories I've heard, but I hear some crazy stories of like transformations after breath work, of
mm,
physical changes, emotional changes, mental changes. Like, I heard one story today about a brain surgeon who did his first breath work and was suffering from insomnia, and had the best sleep of his life after, and was able to now sleep again. Or another one of our facilitators was sharing one of their clients had been working with it for over a year now, and they've reduced their depression medication from 150 milligrams to under 20 milligrams. And this is not by any means like expected results. These are just anecdotal stories. Another one, which I thought was pretty crazy, was a guy who um, we did a session a couple months ago, and at the end of it, had this crazy release, crying cathartically for about 30 minutes, and shared after he went back into this childhood experience where he grew up in one of those like Christian type cultish Mormon experiences. It was really hard on him to have a self-identity, ended up putting himself in a cage in this experience, and was able
mm,
to allow himself to let himself out of the cage in the experience. He shared after that, in that moment, that he had been suffering from gut issues, autoimmune issues for the last 10 years. Very painful. If he ate certain foods, he'd be like, going to the bathroom, passing blood in his stool, like all kinds of crazy stuff. And in that moment, he said, I felt all this pain leave my stomach area. And he goes, I
mm.
think I've cured myself. And like, for someone to say that right after the experience, like, okay, we'll see. You know what I mean? It's not like, yeah, you did. It's not like, no, you didn't. It's like, we'll see. Like that's what was in the back of my head. But I was just really grateful to be there with him and just like thank him for sharing. And but the cool thing was, this was in Peru, and I got to see him about a month and a half later. And I totally forgot he shared that story. He's like, hey man, I really need to tell you something. Like, hey, what's up? And he's like, yeah, you remember that experience? He's like, it's gone. He's
Huh.
like I still feel better. Like I can have a beer if I want to, and it doesn't like kill me. Although I don't like to drink a lot of beer, I can have one now and not feel like, oh my, I can't do that. And I'm like, holy shit, like, like that's insane. And like there's hundreds of them like that. There's hundreds of them like that are very similar, I think, to like what happens in the psychedelic experience with psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. And that's why we've kind of like also started creating these level 2 trainings where it's almost like a breathwork coaching, where you can go like one-on-one with someone and really start helping them dig deeper into the things that are maybe holding them back, or start getting self-awareness and help them to pry a little bit deeper. because we find it an amazing pathway in. Like we start seeing the science of the brain and what happens when you start doing breath work, and how the brain waves change and make it much more malleable and suggestible to different
Mm.
changes. The default mode network in the brain changes activities during breath work as well. And we think that's also what psychedelics do, helps to really change the activity default mode network. We're also seeing changes in heart rate variability with breath work. So there's a lot of systems pointing in directions. And what I found was, okay, like once you get into that state, once you get them into that really peak bliss state, how can you now guide them into an experience? And that's kind of where like the shift happened for me, when it was like moving them into gratitude and like self-reflection and to like self-forgiveness and all these things. And it just really opens up these incredible experiences. And the amazing thing is even though the meditation is the same every time, and you can change it if you want, but that same really like cornerstone
Hmm.
meditation, it's a different experience every single time. People come for a whole year straight to that same class and said every single time was different in a new way. Because as humans, we have so many layers. There's so much to peel through and
Right.
to work with, that you can probably do that for the rest of your life and keep growing and expanding. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I keep rambling on here, but I hope that
No,
answered your
it's
question.
no, it's really great. Just so people know, what's the default mode network? I'd love for people to understand
So
that better.
so default mode network is an area in your brain, and when you're focused on something like a task, it's not very active. Okay, so like I'm focusing on having this conversation right now, and so that part of the brain is not going to be very active. But when I'm stopped doing something, it gets really active in some people. It starts ruminating, starts thinking about negative thoughts or the past or the future, and they say it's really related to like, depression, anxiety, OCD, all these things. And they find that some of these things like psychedelics can help reset or normalize the activity in the default mode network, right? So it's just this part of the brain in the I think it's the neocortex, the front part of the brain, um, that I guess has evolved over time. And they say that's where the ego resides, in that part of the
Right.
brain. And so like breathwork completely shuts that off. Like if you've ever been in breathwork, some people think they're sleeping, and really it's the first time their minds just shut off. And like, I don't know, I didn't feel like I was asleep, but like I came to like 10 minutes later, like I was just so like nothing was happening. It's like, yeah, because most likely you just shut off your mind completely for however long that was.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of research in there, specifically with psychedelics. The bigger problem with breathwork is it's hard to sell. So no companies are really like, hey, let's invest a lot of money in figuring this out. Um, you would think that, you know, if they really cared about helping people, they'd invest whatever is the most promising. But we know that's not the case, right? So, but at least they feel psychedelics is monetizable, and so they're getting a lot of awareness there. But I think you can reach the same places, if not deeper places, because the feedback I get a lot is people will say it's just as powerful as an ayahuasca experience or a plant
Mhm.
medicine experience, or even more profound. Like we've gone to retreats where they've done the plant medicine and it was intense or confusing, and I know it's doing its thing, but the breathwork gave them clarity. Like it was really pinpointed, and they felt like they did it. They felt like that was something that I didn't need something outside of me. I was able to bring myself there and experience that. And I think that's very special for a lot of people to experience. And the
I
other
love
thing
that.
I'll say also about breathwork facilitation is, how you said like you wish all of your community one day would have to take the training or could take it. I think like everyone in the world, like imagine your household, like, hey, I'm gonna do Friday night, I'm gonna lead breathwork for the family, and like then other days someone else can lead it. And it's a different style, a little bit different, and like that's more of like an engaging pastime rather than watching TV. It's like, hey, we can do some breathwork, we can share our experiences. Anyone can do it, and you kind of hit the nail on the head. Was the only prerequisite is you should have an experience first. Because once you have that breathwork experience, a lot of people will come out and say, I want to, it's like intuitive. It's like, I want to share this. I want to either
Yeah.
bring all of my friends or learn how to do it. Like it's so clear. It's like, and anyone can do it. You don't need any previous knowledge, experience. You don't need to be a yogi. You don't need to be like a Wim Hof instructor or a breath master, anything like that. You just have to feel inspired, and you can learn how to do it, right? Like that's
Yeah.
kind of your experience, right? Like you had an experience and you're just like, okay, I'm in.
I want to do this for other people. Like I got this really amazing testimonial today from a client, and I think you probably know this already, but just for our listeners, we start every event that we do. We have a 3-day event called Perfect Practice Live, and we start every morning with breath work. And we also start the entire event. We actually have a special evening on Thursdays before the event even starts, where we do a breath work with anyone who wants to attend, who's part of the event. And we usually have around 200 people that are attending live on Zoom. And I walk them through the Elemental Rhythm Breathwork Experience. And I just got a testimonial today, so it's so timely. So I'm going to share just the first few sentences. And this is a lady named Sue, and she is part of our program, but it started with breath work. She said, I completed the Living Proof Metabolic and Lifestyle Reset Program and Business Mentorship. If I had to sum it up in one word, it was transformational. It all started with an incredible breathwork activity that set the stage for my transformation of body, mind, and soul. And then she goes on and on from there. But like, it's amazing because we were able to take her through this journey, wipe the slate clean, right? Have her in a suggestible state where we could install a new set of programming, a new set of self-awareness, a new set of skills for her to, be supported with. And we were able to hold space for her, right? And that's one of the things that people are looking for these days. They're looking to be heard and to be seen, and for somebody to hold space for them. And that doesn't really happen in a lot of settings, right? It doesn't definitely happen in as much as doctors might try. It often doesn't happen in a doctor's appointment because usually not enough time. It's definitely not happening when you're in the hospital, right? It's not often happening in the work environment. So we're not often surrounded by somebody who's, intimately connected to us and devoted to helping us transform and having that person hold space for us. What I also love about the breath work is that it can be done in person, in a setting with a group of people, which I think it's most powerful at its peak then. However, it can also be done on Zoom. And, with the pandemic and the way our business runs, we've been doing pretty much all of them on Zoom, and I've done a few in-person ones as well. But I can say for me personally, it's opened up so many doors. So, it's given me so many stages and opportunities to share this with people, and provide a unique skill set that where I'm not competing with anyone. Not that I position myself that way, but I'm not stepping on anyone's toes because this is still so fresh and so new in our industry. And now I get invited to do breath work, whereas before I used to get invited to talk about a whole bunch of other things. This has been, the topic that I found to be very interesting and passionate towards. However, there's a huge demand in the marketplace, and very few people are actually able to, uh, or very few people have the training to be able to do what we do. But I know we're trying to collectively change that, because I know it's your mission to get more people aware of this technology, my mission to get more people aware. And I want practitioners around the world to be able to offer something like this because it's so simple. And there's more to it, that there's more to breathing than obviously the elemental experience that people have, because as a coach, we also talk about things like mouth taping and proper nasal breathing and different breathing techniques to conjure different states of physiology that we want to go through. So there's so much more to it than the experience itself, because we're breathing 24/7, whether we have the awareness or not. And helping people create more awareness around that has been very beneficial for them. So we've seen benefits in our business because it allows our clients to show up more, as themselves and peel away these layers of things that are limiting beliefs and holding them back. And it's opened up a lot of doors and stages for me to get on, and for other people in our community that have gone through the training to get on, because it's in such high demand. So I would love your thoughts on what doors has opened up for you as well.
It's pretty incredible, the way people want to give you opportunities once they've been to one of your breathwork classes. They just want to be your friend. They just feel so like they owe you something. And I'm just like, no, listen, like, I'm glad you had the experience. But yeah, it just kind of like snowballs once you start really just focusing on just delivering that experience. And as you said, like, I think it's really important. Well, two things. One, the opportunity side. Like, I think there should be more breathwork facilitators than yoga instructors. We're probably like outnumbered, like at least 50-1 right now, maybe 100-1. So I think we can at least close that gap. I think we have a way bigger market than yoga, because anyone can do breathwork, any age, it doesn't matter what physical shape you're in or anything like that. Like, anyone can do breathwork. And I think it's got more benefits potentially, than than yoga. Like I think they can work well together as well, but I don't like to knock yoga because I think yoga is a great thing as well and it's amazing, but I just use it as a comparison. And as far as doors it's open, like the same thing, speaking opportunities, like I teach down at Rhythmia a few times a year. I've been invited to, advise on companies because of sharing breath work, and allows me to just create so many different connections. I met you because of it, like
Mhm.
because of that was from the Wim Hof breath work, but like you meet all these people and now you have all these friends, and if you stay in touch with them, you need anything or a favor, you put it out there, and people are just willing to like help you or connect you or whatever. So yeah, there's just so much, and I love hearing the stories from my facilitators. Like, yeah, I did a class for this one guy. He ended up, being part of this network of like 300 entrepreneurs. And now I'm, in this network of entrepreneurs doing breath work, and had all these other opportunities arise out of it. And for me, it's really just like being open to possibility, just showing up and be like myself and
Mm.
express myself in a way that feels good to me, and just sharing that unconditionally, just really just trying to create the best experience with no expectation who's coming to class. Sometimes you get surprised, or some interesting people show up and they're going to want to help and share with you, and that's great. And we'll see what happens. And a great book for me was A Surrender Experiment, which really helped me just be present into each moment of every situation, and just be open to what outcome comes on the other side, good or bad. And my personal opinion is the more you put out there. Sorry about that. The more you put out there, the more you give, the more you're open to receive. As long as you're open to receive, like the more is going to come back your way. So,
Yeah.
um,
Uh, Another question for you is, this came up in a conversation I was having with somebody else.
I apologize. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. So I was having a conversation with somebody who is an empath, right, and identifies as an empath. And when you have these type of emotions kind of boiling to the surface for people, for somebody who may be sensitive to these type of energies, can you comment on that, or do you have any tools that can be helpful for somebody who might feel that way?
Yeah, for sure. I have a few opinions on it. These are my own opinions. So
Sure.
so there's things you can do, which really help to kind of like release energy from the body, like grounding yourself, to Mother Earth. So using some smoke and sage and different things like that. Taking a cold shower, an ice bath, the way you prepare yourself coming in. Um, but I also think a lot of like holding on to that energy is also like due to some sort of like core wounds that people have experienced in their life, where they hold on
Mm.
to energy and they're not able to let it go because there's a kind of like an expectation of like, how do I put this in a way that makes sense? Like they want to help everybody and they feel responsible for healing people, and they want to make sure, so they just absorb everything and hold on to it and not allow it to kind of like flow through them. And when I'm going to breath work, I'm just like, I'm being a servant of the universe, and nothing is mine. I just allow it to flow through me. I allow the work to flow through me, and I allow whatever comes through. Like it's not even going to touch me. Like my vibration, I put it at a level that if there's anything dark or negative or emotional, it's like it's not mine. Like it's not going to touch me. But if in your mind you start believing that, and
Mm.
then you start telling yourself that, and you're just like, oh, I picked up all this energy from that person, or I felt that. You can feel energy from people for sure, but whether you're going to take it on, I think that's a choice people make. And again, empaths will probably argue me to death on this, but I ultimately think, if you're going to believe that belief is going to make you feel a certain way, right?
Yeah, I would. I definitely say that our identity, right? So if we identify as somebody who holds on to other people's energy, then that's exactly the reality that we're going to try to create. And perhaps phase one of recreating that identity is using these secondary tools like sage, or I know some people use crystals or essential oils, getting outside, grounding, cold baths, showers, as you mentioned. But I think the real reframe for people is to create a new identity that I can hold space for people, but I'm vibrating because I'm working on myself and doing the self work. I'm vibrating on a frequency that doesn't attach to that energy, that holds space for it, but doesn't, become entangled with it.
Right. And so yeah, like sometimes like the thing in breath work though, you're gonna feel a lot of things. Like when you're facilitating, like you're gonna feel the energy shift in the room. You're gonna feel like when you go into gratitude, this wave of emotion come over, and intuitively sometimes you say things that just come out of nowhere. They just like when you're present, it's like you say a prompt that you never said before, and then afterwards, someone's like, "Hey, when you said that, it was like so timely. It was exactly what I need to hear." And I think the same thing goes about like the energetic. It's like, if you, like I said, it's like really what you believe is kind of what you're going to experience and what you're going to attract. That's my own personal experience. And I've seen both ends of it. I've seen when I believed things were going to go wrong and fail, that everything I did was in that space, in that energy. And when I kind of got over that and saw the truth of it, when I reprogrammed some of my beliefs around what it meant and what success meant and what failure meant, I could change the way I was like feeling in my life around certain things. I could see the possibility out of it. Whereas before it was like I could only see the ways that it could go wrong, the way it could fail and all the downside. And I think the same thing is energetically. If you feel that, like, hey, absorb everyone's energy, every time you're around someone, you feel a little bit, you're going to start like feeling it. Like, I'm sure, I don't know if you've experienced it, but like, sometimes when you think you're sick, you start manifesting symptoms, or you start tricking yourself that like, hey, I feel sick, or is that a fever? And then maybe someone goes and Googles it online and they see another 20 symptoms, like, oh my God, I feel a lump in my neck, or I got a fever. Like, the mind is a crazy thing. And the ability to manifest and create things is like what you put in there in the reticular activating system. The mind starts trying to like seek it out and experience it because it thinks that's what you want. It's like, okay, like, we're going to feel this way. Like, okay, this is what you really want. So let's crank the
Yeah.
temperature up. Now you get a fever. I don't know.
I think I think you being able to say that so elegantly comes from doing the work, right? So what's some of the work that you've done to be able to raise your vibration, or to be able to hold space for people and not latch onto that. I know it's the mindset, but there's probably some either books you've read or experiences that you've had, or uh, things,
Well,
lessons that you've learned, anything that jumps out to you.
yeah. The most important thing is, well, there's two things: curiosity and intuition. Being able to be curious about life and potential and like why things are the way they are, including yourself and the way you think and the way you feel. And trying to like feel into like what intuition is and listening to that kind of voice. It's always trying to kind of steer you. And the mind is always trying to stay in what's certain. It's always trying to say like, hey, like I understand this. This is comfortable, or it's uncomfortable, but it's certain. So like I don't want to go into uncertainty. And the
Mm.
curiosity is what like, killed the cat, but also probably enlightened the cat at the same time. You get curious and say, okay, like what's out there. So those are two like things that I think are very important. And each person's journey is going to be completely different, where those two things lead them. Um, but when you start listening to it, you'll see there's certain things that are going to be really pulling you strongly in different directions. Whether it's just in business, and it doesn't have anything to do with spiritual. I think everything is part of your spiritual journey, even like your business, your schooling, everything. The way you feel like, oh, I can't stand this, or I can't be in this place, or I can't work here, and people are trying to get a hold of me. And who has a house phone anymore? My house line keeps ringing. I can't silence that.
They're calling you to do breath work.
Yeah, right. The universe is calling. They got an answer for me. And the other thing is like there are no real answers. Like I haven't figured it out, but you have deeper awareness and you start asking different questions. Whereas, a question before that I would probably ask myself was like asking for an answer, like what am I supposed to do with my life, or like what I do in this business decision, or like this and that. And like it was totally like the wrong questions to ask. It was, now I'm just really like trying to figure out what it even means to be a human being, and like trying to drop
Mm.
judgment of like good and bad. And we live in this world that's so dualistic, and just trying to like understand the other side's point of view and seeing like where they might be coming from, and dropping attachment to both that opinion and my own opinion at the same time, and just saying, hey, like it's okay like to have this, like this is perfect right now. Maybe the earth needs what's going on right now, and I'm just here to observe and be a part of it and play with it, just be here and do my thing right through to the end.
Mm.
Am I going to get swallowed up in some crazy war, or you know um collapse of the market and lose everything? Yeah, but that could be a fun experience in this like video game of life, which I'm here for like the Instagram minute. I don't think life is more like the holding your breath kind of 80 years. It's more like a scrolling on Instagram 80, 100 years, maybe more. It's like, what am I going to do while I'm here? Am I going to really waste all my time worrying, but just exploring and like, trying to like understand myself and try to like have deeper experiences? And um, read a lot of books, different philosophies, found plant medicine. That was a big one. It's not for everyone, but really opened my eyes to a lot of different possibilities, I guess, about the universe, about life, having death experiences in there, and really understanding that it doesn't end there, or at least that's what it was trying to show me. And then like things like breath work, something that's so accessible, ice baths, being out in nature, like really just spending time in nature, shutting off your phone, just going there and just being quiet and observing your mind and how crazy the mind is. And, so yeah, like there's a lot of things, but I think it's like when you hear something that jumps out at you that you feel curious about, when you hear something that comes up a few times and you've noticed it, like that's what to bring your awareness to, like go check that out, because usually that's your intuition trying to pull you in a direction. So all those things I mentioned, there was a point in time where it just started popping up and I felt this kind of curiosity to it. And then I had to dive in and just find out what it was all about. And there's nothing better or more important than your own personal experience. You can read all you want in the books. I started with the books when I had like my first kind of like, oh my God, what's the point of living? What's the point of life? This is all meaningless. Read as much philosophy as I could and thought I had an understanding, but I didn't until I had the real world experience of like facing all those fears or, psychedelic experience or whatever. And then I started to understand a little bit about what they were talking about.
Hmm.
Yeah.
One thing I love about you is the we'll see mentality. So I love that you're kind of pluripotent. You're open to whatever possibilities and whatever potential is out there. And you never, in my experience, have passed judgment. So even when I get excited about an idea or, with everything that's happened over the last 2 years, it's like, do you think this is true? Do you think this is going to happen? You're like, we'll see. I'm like, I need to get to that level of enlightenment where
You know what I figured out? I would go crazy trying to have all these potential outcomes, and like none of them would happen. It would be something else that I could not even see. And a friend of mine put it in a really interesting way. My friend JJ, he's like, there's the things that you know like you're a functional medicine coach, and that you're a dad, and that you're good at certain things, and you're a breathwork facilitator. And there's things that you don't know, like you're not a brain surgeon, you're not an astronaut, you're not good at calculus, maybe, like I don't know, maybe you are good at calculus, you probably would be, but anyways. But then there's the things you don't know and that you're still going to discover and you're still going to figure out and that are going to happen. That possibility that wasn't a possibility yesterday, that tomorrow's a possibility. And when I went through my experience at building Elemental, what I looked back and saw after was, yeah, that space in those years, like now it's got potential to make some money. And maybe when I made it, part of it was like, yeah, I want a space to connect, but I also wanted to make money because I needed an income. But that really wasn't the initial intention of it. But when I look back at the businesses I have now and the relationships and the opportunities I have now, all those came out of that. So it was this planting ground that was seeds to create connections with people that then saw me as a person that they wanted to do business with. And then I create all these other opportunities, but I couldn't see it back then. But now looking back, I can see it. So now it's like, okay, like anything that happened. So in those days, if you would have gave me like an eject button, like at month, I don't know, 12, after going through construction, opening for 3 months, even month 18, I would have pressed it. You said, give me like the reset going back. And if I look back and I would have pressed it now, I said that would have been the stupidest thing you could have ever done in your life. Right? But I would have done it in that moment.
Right.
And so for people who are in a spot right now, they're just launching a business or having a tough time, there's something beautiful on the other side of this challenge if you can work your way through it and figure out what the whole purpose of it is. It always works like that. And I think the world is designed in that dualistic way, so it can challenge both sides of it always. If it was perfect and easy, you wouldn't grow or learn or anything like that. But you have like this crazy perfect like yin yang, the world, like you look at the yin yang and there's a swirling energy with inside of each of it, there's the opposite. Right. And it's necessary to continually evolve and grow and challenge and learn. And when I remind myself of that, it's like, yeah, everything is perfect. Even though it doesn't feel good all the time. And don't get me wrong, like when I say this, like, oh, this guy never feels scared or upset. Like, yeah, like I get challenged, The most interesting thing, this was another conversation I had over the weekend, was like, you get over one challenge and you get like this like kind of like plateau where you feel really good and you're like, oh man, like things are really good right now. You start knowing, hey, something else is going to be coming around the corner eventually. Another challenge to just really
Right.
check me, because I signed up for this, right? This ongoing growth in life. And it's like, okay, but now it's like I welcome it when it comes. It's like it's going to be hard, I know. It's going to suck for sure, but there's going to be so much growth that can come with something like that, right?
Mm.
And to remember that, in my opinion, we've lived this life many times. So even through death, you're still having this experience. And I don't want to die, but I know like one day I'm going to have that experience and it's probably going to be amazing. It's probably nothing like what my mind thinks and it's probably afraid of right now. It'll probably be some crazy, beautiful, like beyond your wildest dreams experience. And when that time is right for me, like let's bring it on. So
Yeah.
anyways.
No, I love that. I thank you for sharing that, because I've always admired that about you, and it's it's a journey, right? So we're constantly trying to move in that direction where we don't become so attached to a future that we have, we have some control over it, but a lot of times we get hung up in what other people are doing, right? And other people's futures and other people's possibilities, where we can just stay in our breath, stay, tuned into our own energy, work on raising our own vibration. And then, uh, we signed up for this, and we have all the tools that we need, to create transformation for ourselves, and that moment when we encounter it at some point in the future. Giovanni, I'd love to ask you, how can people experience this? Because that's one of the first things we talked about, is getting people to experience more firsthand, right? What the breath work can do for them, because there's nothing to sell, right? It resonates instantly with people who do it. And then what they're left with is like, how do I do this for other people? How do I create this amazing people, or this amazing feeling for other people that I love and care about? So where can they experience that? Is there somewhere that we'd like to send them?
Yeah, so the first easiest way is just to reach out to Sachin and convince him to hold a live breathwork experience for all of you guys. That would be like the probably the best experience. Secondly, we have a website, elementalrhythm.com. There's recorded experiences on there. I would look for the Elemental Rhythm Breakthrough Experience on there. And we do offer live classes every Monday. So we do like a 7-day free trial for the website access. So you can just go on, do the class, and then, cancel your membership. So it's totally free. And then if you feel called to, we have facilitator training every 3 months, and we're expanding that because we're teaching people how to teach facilitators now, so that we can, have all these like almost like yoga teacher training, so people can teach other people how to do it. And that's where we really want to spread. So we had our first one just in Ohio in person, last week, and it went amazing. And we're trying to find people that want to, you know, have this in their toolkit, whether they do it, full time or in conjunction with, being a functional medicine. I think it's a great combination, or like a coach or a personal trainer. Like almost anybody could do this. And even if you're not any of those things, like so we have some lawyers, we have some police officers, firefighters, like doctors that are part of it. We have all different walks of life who are facilitators. So yeah, just go on the website. We have the facilitator training on elementalrhythm.com. You can find, a time. We do it both online and we do it in person. And one of the things that I just wanted to touch on as well, you mentioned earlier, was, the best experience is in person, and then, it also works online. But what we also realize is some people actually allow themselves to go deeper in the online experience because they feel safe, because they're at home. They're not
Mhm.
afraid of people judging them. And we found like people that are really resistant in person can have even deeper experiences at home. So it really just depends on who you're delivering it to. Sometimes it could be better online. And we've done the full training online, and some of our best facilitators came out of that online training. So it really doesn't matter. It's up to you, online or in person. And if you have questions, just reach out. We have a great team that is always looking to find, the next most amazing breathwork facilitator, which hopefully is one of you guys listening.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure to share the links so people can learn more and become more familiar with your work. It's been, again, transformational for me, and I look forward to continuing our friendship and mutual mentorship of each other's personal growth and business growth. Thank you for being such an amazing influence in my life and in my family's life. You've transformed it in more ways than I can express. So I appreciate you greatly.
I really appreciate that, Sachin. And same, thank you so much for all that you do within, this business and in your personal life, and the way you're such a great leader and role model and mentor. And I can also go on probably for hours here, but just I appreciate you so much. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for listening, tuning in today. Thank you for taking time out of your day. I know how valuable it is. And I hope you got value out of today, because it is my ultimate mission to help you create your perfect practice. And it starts by having the right tools to build that practice. And I truly believe that breath work is one of those tools that allows us to, liberate people from their pain, from their suffering, and allows us to gives us a tool that goes beyond supplements, goes beyond lab testing, and it equips people with a newfound skill set, but it also equips them with a clean slate, which I think a lot of people need. They need a reset metabolically, but a lot of times they need a reset emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And breathwork is something that can do that for people. Thank you once again, Giovanni.
I just had one more thing to that.
Sure,
One more
go
thing
ahead.
is that when people take the training, the one thing they don't realize, because they want to serve others, but what really happens when they go through that experience is all the breath work and teaching they're doing creates a transformation within them. We see that time and time again. People that start the training and come out are two totally different people, and that's what we want, because those people now can share from a place of understanding, of like, oh, breathwork changed my life. Same thing like how most of the practitioners here probably had a health issue and went to functional medicine and got inspired by how, hey, this actually works much better than what wasn't working before. So I just wanted to leave that as the last thing about, potentially becoming facilitators. You will feel like experience changes within yourself at the same time. So thank
Yeah,
you,
great.
Sachin.
Yeah, excellent point. Thank you, Giovanni. Yeah, it's who you become in the process, right? So it's like a new version of yourself emerges as you go through this journey, and you just start discovering parts of yourself, spiritually, mentally, physically, that you didn't even know existed. And as you shed, because as a facilitator, you go through the breathing, right? Because we start many of the sessions with breath work. So you're definitely increasing the cadence compared to the average person, and you're peeling those layers that Giovanni talked about. So you're shedding that old skin that isn't serving you anymore, and a new you is revealed. The real you is revealed, not a new you. The real you is revealed. Awesome.
Amazing.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Giovanni. Lots of love to you, and appreciate all of you for tuning in. We'll share the links where you can connect with Giovanni's work, and I invite all of you to at least explore the possibility of adding this to your tool belt. Your clients will thank you profusely over and over again, and you will thank yourself. Your future self will thank you for moving your practice or adding this tool to your practice, because it will be a step in the right direction for you.